Today's episode, we're going to be sharing with Rob Anspach, and he's going to help you find out what you need to do to create a successful book that changes people's lives. Let's get to it. I'm Steve Sapato. While you are familiar with storytelling, there's a new approach called storytizing that takes it to the next level. What sets me apart is my ability to teach you how to energize every talk, how to engage every audience, how to involve them, get them interested, asking questions, leaning forward and wanting more from you. I get you the accolades and results you want from every presentation you give. What you get from storytizing is more confidence, more visibility, more opportunities. Imagine you're a salesperson wanting to make $100,000 a year, but suddenly you're making $500,000 a year because you learned one new technique, storytizing, the ultimate training for your success. Hi, I'm Steve Sapato, your host, and you're listening to Know, Like, and Trust, the podcast. And we're probably going to put it on Speaker Talks podcast because our guest has so much to offer. And if you guys are excited about learning how to be more successful, how to do more with your speaking, how to be more with your empowerment, and what your message is, boy, Rob Anspach is here. And Rob, I'll let you take it away. Tell us a little bit about you and what you've been doing over the last 6 or 12 months.
Oh, I've been doing a lot of writing. I just produced my 50th book, which called Legacy, and that's building a business or building a life and business that lasts beyond you. And the reason I wrote that book is I've been helping not only my clients produce their books for years, since 2013 when I wrote my first book, but the idea of legacy as I've gotten older, and I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. um, you know, I just wanted to be able to leave something behind. And when people think about legacy, they think, wow, money. Money is not always that thing you leave behind.
You know what? I'm going to interrupt you a second, Rob, because that's my wife and I. I've told this to my wife for the last 10 years. I said, when we watch movies or TV, and I think, how cool would it be to be in one movie where you could
Mhm.
tell your grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren, hey, look it, there's my name. And then when you're gone, they'll be telling their grandkids, look, that's great grandpa's name in that movie. And so legacy is something we all would like to leave behind. And here's Rob telling us how we can make that happen. I'm sorry, go
Well,
ahead,
it,
Rob.
it actually sparked when my first grandson was born. So,
Oh,
I started writing and I haven't stopped. And so legacy is something that you want to think about. And like I said, it's not about money. For me, it was always about knowledge. What am I leaving behind for the next generation to learn from? Because, to be honest, most people can't manage money anyway.
no,
So
duh.
you give them money, and within 3 generations, that money's gone. So give
And
them knowledge that they
I'm going to
can learn
interrupt you.
from.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you again because I'm I was 55 years old, Rob, and I'm on a plane going to Hawaii, and it took me several years to put the money together to go on my first trip to Hawaii, and that's because I didn't know about money. And on this plane trip, I read a thing, and it said, what's the rule of 72? And I went, the rule of 72 is how does your interest compound your money? Well, my
Mhm.
mom and dad told me when I was growing up, you should save 10% of your income. When I was growing up, if you had a decent job, you made $1.25 an hour. So at the end of the week, you had $50. And that was not take home pay. That was $50. And
Right.
so when you think about it, matter of fact, I thought about it. I went, if I put away 10%, that's $5. $5 is no money. That's not going to look how long it would take forever to amount to any money. And what I didn't know about was how compounding interest could have taken that $5 and turned it into $500,000 by the time I reached 65. And so I've
Mhm.
got a little video out there that's a free video that I if you look it up, it's Steve Sapato's Rule of 72. But it teaches you or your children or your grandchildren about the compounding effect of money, which, boy, it's really vital that we start teaching people, the average American, about money, right, Rob?
Yeah. Not only money, but knowledge. You think
Yeah.
about compounding interest. Why don't you think about it as compounding knowledge?
Oh,
How much knowledge can you leave behind for someone else to learn from? And so, people are like, Rob, you're just a machine cranking out all these books. I'm compounding knowledge for someone to learn from.
absolutely. That's absolutely right. I like how you look at that compounding knowledge.
It's, but a lot of people, they get into business and for them, everything's transactional.
Oh yeah,
And I like money too, but money's a tool. I like knowledge better because
that's right.
knowledge is
Most
going to make me a better person. It's going to change the way I think about things.
and the information out there says the average college graduate reads less than one book a year after they graduate college. And it doesn't say a book that'll help you. It doesn't say positive motivational books. It says one book. So that's a Harlequin romance novel. The average college graduate reads less than one book a year. And most of us who do read, and when you look at the stats, they're not reading anything to improve themselves, Rob. They're reading stuff, right?
Yes,
The romance, the Harlequin romance novels, they're reading those kinds of things. And so when you look at how we're not improving our knowledge, we're not passing on our information and knowledge, it's kind of scary for our future, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And this is one of the reasons I don't put any of my books on audio. And
Oh,
people are like,
really?
"Oh, Rob, you should do that. You should look, I want you to read a book. My books are not hard. 120, 150 pages, non-intimidating. You have it done in about an hour and a half. And that's the goal. I mean, all the books that I've produced, all of them are under 200 pages because I want you to read them in one day,
Yes, yes.
you
That's what
know.
Rob and I share, that we want you to read our books in one sitting
Yeah.
because first of all, it plants a lot of, we got lots to share. And when we put that out there, I've got one called Shut Up and Succeed. I've got another one, Be Your Own, best success story type thing. And it's one of those deals where if you go through this, and well, I had somebody say, Steve, it took less than an hour to read your book on relationships. I went, okay. They went, well, thanks a lot. I went, okay. And then about 3 months later, they wrote me and said, I picked up your book again. And it really, what you had done is what had happened is they had peaked some things out of that book over the next 3 months. And they had to go back and find out more like, wait, what did that guy say about this? And so they
Right.
went back and reread the book. And it turned out they reread it 3 times.
Yeah.
And that's what Rob and I want for you is we want to give you a little information in our book that you go, oh, that was cool. And then
Yeah.
we want it to digest. And we want you to go, oh crap, that's what that guy meant. I better go back and read that book again, right, Rob?
I have a couple books coming out, a series of books, and it started out just as, you know, a way for consumers to win back their lives. And it was sparked because my daughter was on the phone with a debt collector and she goes, "You can go to hell." And I'm like, huh, that'd be a good title for a book. So I sat down and I wrote this book called Debt Collectors Can Go to Hell. And my buddy's like, Rob, I love it. Can I help you produce this? I said, well, I typically produce it, but if you want to do the graphics and you want to do all, great, let's team up. And so I actually wrote two more books for that series called, and one was called Slumlords Can Go to Hell, and one was HOA Boards Can Go to Hell. And as we're sharing these out on social, teasing them out, one person says, well, I'm looking for that book that says the IRS can go to hell. And I'm thinking, yeah, let's do that one. So now
You put your name on that target, Rob. You put your name on
we
the
have
target.
these four books that'll be coming out in a few months. And these are just not ordinary books. These help people fight back. And in every single book, there's template letters that you can copy to fight back the debt collectors and the IRS and the HOA boards and the slumlords. And I said to my buddy, I said, we're not doing this for money. We're doing this to help consumers fight back. And I think sometimes people get mistaken, or there's that misconception that when you write a book, you're going to instantly become a millionaire. I got 50 books to tell you otherwise. But what these
Hey Rob,
books,
I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this real quick. About 15 years ago, I had somebody call me up and he goes, "Hey, I heard you can help me. You become a great speaker." And I went, "Yeah, I can. I can really help you with all of that kind of stuff. Make you a great storyteller, not a storyteller who's boring, but a storyteller who's very interesting."
Mhm.
And and I said, "I can do all those things for you." I said, What's the reason you want to become a speaker?" And he went, "Well, I want to get rich." I went, oh, okay, please explain that more. He said, well, I'm going to write several books, then I'm going to go out and talk on them, and I'm going to get rich. And I went, how much do you think you make on a book? Exactly. It's like, if what is the average? Because everybody's a self-publisher now. The
Yeah.
average book sale for the rest of us, if they sell 100 books in their lifetime, they have
Mhm.
sold a lot of books. Okay, because most people don't go out and buy your book unless you know how to promote it, and Rob can teach you how to promote it, and Rob can teach you how to do certain things with it. But the key is, and I tell people all the time, if you write a book, you have to be able to speak, and if you speak, you have to write a book. So that's why Rob and I team up on these kinds of things, because you have to know your future. Where do you want to go? I mean, I had questions for Rob when we first started. It's like, do you know what you want out of your life? Do you know what your message is out of your life? Do you have things that you want to accomplish out of your life? Do you know how you're going to do that? And if you don't, maybe you should reach out to one of us coaches and learn how to do certain things that will really help you achieve. And we've put together different programs. I've got a Speaker Talks program, which is going to help speakers learn how to achieve their goals for speaking on stage. We've got people like Rob who will be coming to our Speaker Talks events to teach people how to be book authors, how to promote their books, how to write their books. You know how to write a book? Rob knows how to write a book, don't you, Rob?
And I want to stop you because the very first chapter in my very first book was called Share Your Story. And people say, "Well, Rob, you're just this awesome speaker and you do this and you do." Yeah, but I wasn't always that way. For 19 years, I owned a carpet cleaning business in a small town in Pennsylvania, but I had this dream of being bigger and better.
People quit hiring Rob because all he would do is go to their house and talk to them. So yeah.
Probably. No, but when I first started this cleaning business in 1995, I struggled for 3 years. And then I went out to a marketing seminar in Arizona, learned how to market, met Dan Kennedy, met Joe Polish, met all these names, and I started absorbing all this marketing and I
Yeah.
started learning how to be better. And it's just that evolution that I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be able to teach what I'm learning and help lawyers and doctors and all kinds of people discover marketing, discover how to tell their story, and just learn how to extend their legacy beyond themselves.
And that's really crucial, that if you have a message, I put out a thing here because we're starting this podcast, new Know, Like, and Trust podcast, and it's new. I've got two others out there, but I wanted to change this one up and become something with it. I wanted, like you said, I wanted a legacy. I've had another one out there that was called the Happiness Agenda, and all it was me wanting to talk to people and have a good time. So even though it's been out there 7 years, I never made a dime on that podcast because that was not the intent of that
Right.
podcast. And what I want you as listeners to know is that when it's time to do your thing, you have to have the right tools and get with the right people. So
Right.
when we talk about, I did a Speaker Talks thing, probably 5 years ago, and I had a book guru, so to speak, who said they could help the people who attended my thing how to become great speakers or become great writers and authors, and they could promote their book. And she got two clients out of that first event that I used, but she was terrible,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely terrible. I think she didn't know how to do it, so she was learning from the first two clients she got for my event. And that was my mistake because I had not vetted the right people to give my people the right information, because it's crucial. And so while she was charging great fees, she wasn't doing the right things. And as you talk to Rob, you'll know that he does the right things. He knows the right things. He knows the right people to help you do the right things so
Mm-hmm.
that your book will absolutely take off and your book can accomplish great things for you. And when he said you have to be able to promote yourself, that's the
Mm-hmm.
key. So we
You
we
know, I,
both share that a book and a speech
I,
that will help you grow, right, Rob?
and here's the thing is that maybe you don't understand your whole story. And that's why I interview people. I interview people all the time because I want to pull those stories out. I had a gentleman come to me and he said, "Rob, I have 35 pages of a future book." I said, "Okay, send it to me." And I read through it and I said, "Okay, well, this is what I would add to it to make it better." "Oh, that's a great idea." And so we did. We did everything that was
Oh,
on the
cool.
list. We made this book even bigger and it became a 150-page book. And every time he goes to speak at events, he's selling 50 to 100 copies. His Amazon account is blowing up. And,
Cool.
and he's like, Rob, I would have never thought the way you think to take this book higher. And you would think that after doing 50 some books, everyone is different. Now there's a series I have called Rob Versus where I take on the scammers, the morons, and it's just my conversation dealing with them. But it's a very funny, sarcastic book or books,
Yeah.
and people love them because it only takes them 40 minutes to read, and they're laughing and sometimes you got to break out of the mold. I mean, I've helped weight loss doctors, I've helped speakers, I've helped all kinds of people, but everybody has a different story.
That's when you say everybody has a different story. One of the things most speaking coaches do, Rob, is teach people how to be storytellers.
Mhm.
And I tell people all the time, most storytellers are boring as hell. That's why I created a course called Storytizing, where you get away from talking about yourself. I even do that in a 3 minutes to yes sales conversation, where I
Mhm.
teach people to stop talking about themselves. Matter of fact, I think my phrase on that is uh, never tell somebody what you do. And people look at me like I'm an idiot, like I'm a fool. But I went, if I tell you I'm an electrician, do you want to know anything more about being an electrician? Probably not. So you're
Mhm.
done talking to me. If I tell you I'm a public speaker, what are you supposed to do with that? It's like, oh, good for you, right? Because you don't need a public
Yeah.
speaker. So you're just going to pass me off. And that's true of every profession that you are involved in. If you
I
tell
was,
people what you do, we think we know what you do. We think we know what's
uh,
involved in your business, and
and
we have
and
no idea.
a lot of times when you're in these seminars and they go around, you're supposed to introduce yourself. I always make stuff up. People are like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I stood up one time and I said I take spent nuclear fuel rods and turn them into gym sets." And they're like, "What?" I
What
said,
that
"No,
two
I'm a
kids?
writer. I'm a marketer." After that, everybody just wanted to talk to me.
And Rob is ideal for what we both teach, which is you have to break the routine of everybody.
Yeah.
There's a phrase for that, and I'm drawing a blank on it right now. But it's pattern interrupt. You
Yeah.
have to create everybody stands up in those networking things and says, "Hi, I'm Steve Zapato. I run this company. I've had the company for this many years. I've done this. I'm good at that." Nobody gives a rat's, right? You stand up like Rob and you say stuff like that, people are going to go, "Wait, what?" And then you just give them a phrase, and that phrase was something like, "Oh, I'm just fooling you because I'm really a marketer and a book author." Boom, he sits down, right? But he got their attention, and they'll be talking about that at dinner that night. They'll be talking about Rob at
Yeah.
dinner that night. They aren't going to be talking about the rest of us who bored them to death with a 30-second commercial.
Yeah.
It's vital that you have a pattern interrupt in everything you do, every conversation you have, every speech you give, every book you write. And that's what Rob, tell you what, Bob, Rob's got some great book titles too. So
Yeah. And the Rob Versus series, it started out just, the first book didn't have my face on it. It was just, Rob versus the scammers.
well, you wanted it to sell, probably, right?
I, I do what to say. But then all the other ones had my face on it and they had to get progressively more ridiculous. And so there's 8 of them in that series. And I actually have enough material to write 2 more, but I've been so busy writing these other books, I haven't gotten to it. And people are like, Rob, when's the next one coming out?
I don't want you to give away your secrets, but how do you write? How long does it take you to write a book, and how do you write a book? Don't give away your secrets because I want you to sell that sometime to people.
Right. Well, my fastest book was actually Legacy. And I came back from, I took my wife and mother-in-law to France for 2 weeks to
Oh,
celebrate her
nice,
80th birthday.
nice.
And
Who else wants to go
I
to
was,
France? Well, you got to learn how to write books, right? That's it.
so I had sketched out the idea for Legacy because I was actually working on 2 other books for clients. And when I came home, I wrote the book from start to finish. And then a month went by and I actually had it on Amazon. So it was the fastest produced book I ever did, but it was
Wow.
also my 50th produced book. So, it's kind of like lather, rinse, repeat. You got a system. You
Yeah.
know how what works. And one of the things I don't do anymore, I used to put it out and I say, review it, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. And then I get 100 different people saying, well, change this, change that. And I'm like, no, uh-uh. Now, if a lot of those same people came back and it was the same issue over and over and over again, I would change it. But usually, you ask 100 opinions, and you're going to get 100 different
That's right.
answers, and
That's right.
and
And
so
I'm gonna say that that's one of the challenges with so many new authors and new speakers is
Mhm.
if you ask people for their opinion, first of all, they're not qualified to give you an opinion. They've probably never written a book, right? They've probably never given a speech, and yet they're the first ones who will jump in. You do that on all social media where somebody's talking about something, somebody jumps in and says, I've never done that, but that seems stupid. And you're like, if you've never done it, how would you know? That's why it's vital that you hire someone who can help you produce the results you want. Because I
Mhm.
mean, I've seen people out there who said, what do you think of these three titles? Or I've seen the ladies, especially, which one of these three dresses would, outfits would
Right.
be the best book cover? And I'm quite frankly, I'm looking at them going, none of those three are right for a book cover, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't ask me, they asked everybody. And then
Yeah.
everybody jumps in and says this. And I go, in my head, because I never challenge them, it's what makes these people qualified to even offer an idea or a suggestion? Because unless they're designing covers or designing photo shoots, they're designing talks, unless they've been in the corporate world where they really have to evaluate topics or titles for a talk, they are not qualified to help you, right? They will only get in your way. And that's what
Yeah.
Rob was just saying.
And my graphic designer knows my style. He knows what I like, and so he usually returns to me one uh, version. Now, when we're dealing with clients, we give them three versions. Which one do you like the best? And from that, we can change the fonts or do this. But you give somebody too many choices,
Oh,
and they're just off the planet, and
they're lost.
you're just so you have to really limit what you ask somebody to do. You ever go into a restaurant where they have these Coke machines with these buttons, and you can just select 1,000 different choices, and you got one person standing there, and it's like, dude, decide. This isn't you know
But you're right. You gave them too many choices.
right. But then you go to these other places, they only have five choices. You get a Coke, a diet, a root beer, or iced tea. It's easy to pick
Oh,
because you
I'm going to
have less
qualify
choices.
that. My second wife, and I'm on my third now. My second wife, we'd go to the same village inn at least once a week. Same village inn once a week because we like their food. And we would go to that, and the server would walk up and go, what would you like to drink? And honest to goodness, every time she said, what do you have? And I wanted to slap her. I was like, you know what they have. We've been here every week for 2 years, right? But she waited for them to recite it back, and then she had to make a decision. You're like, man, okay, well, some some people can't make a decision even when it's narrow. So,
Yeah, but I think when you give people too many choices, then it becomes a
well, you've been
problem.
to those restaurants too. Like you used
Yeah.
a restaurant. You've been to those where you look at. I mean, the menu is really 6 or 7 pages long, and I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the wine list. I'm talking about the menu. And so you have to decide: do I even want an appetizer? Do I want a main entree, or do I want something else? Do I want a salad? Or and boy, you go through that, and you're flipping pages, and the server has to come back 4 or 5 times because one of you at the table hasn't made a decision yet. And my wife now she always says, "You better take my order now before I change my mind again." I think
Hmm.
that's a great way to look at it.
Well, it goes back to that KISS acronym: keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And you really have to. And this is the whole premise of my books, is to keep them simple enough that the average person can pick them up, read them, and then go on with their day.
And Rob, how do they get in touch with you? How do they find you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's Anspach Media, Anspach media.com. And you can learn more about my company. There's also about Rob. So you can go to that page. You can even download my resume if you wanted.
Ooh.
And the reason I put it up there is because as a lifelong entrepreneur, I want people to realize that yes, I owned a carpet cleaning business for 19 years, and I overlapped that with the current company that I have now for the last 24 years. So I've been doing this a while.
Little while. You know what I found most impressive about Rob just now, and it shows his expertise and experience, is he not only told you the name of his website, onspachmedia.com, but he spelled it for you. I can't tell you how many quote unquote professionals I've had on my podcast who give you anspachmedia.com and then you can do this. And first of all, they didn't give you time to write it down.
Hmm.
Second thing is they didn't spell it for you because while some of you might be watching this on video, some of you will only be getting the audio. And it's
Hmm.
important that if you're only getting the audio, that somebody says, this is how you spell Anspach, Anspach media.com. It's vital that you have that information out there. And Rob didn't hesitate. He gave you the information, then he spelled it for you. And that shows knowledge and professionalism on a podcast. So if you're ever going to be on a podcast, little things like that really give away to your audience whether you're the professional that you claim to be. Rob,
Hmm.
we've got about 2 minutes left on this, I think, so we better start wrapping this up so they know how to get a hold of you. Um, Tell them really what is your favorite thing to offer so that they, if they're really in the market, they could look you up.
Wow, my favorite thing to author. Well, you can go to my podcast. You can binge listen.
What's
Uh,
the name of it?
my podcast is called E Heroes, the letter E, Heroes, and you can find that on my website. Um, but there's over 325 episodes, and I interview brilliant people, sometimes eclectic
Wait,
entrepreneurs.
he hasn't interviewed me. How can he say that?
Yeah, you're next. You soon get you on. Um, but you know, I do the podcast not to make money. And you're probably going, Rob, you don't make money on your books, you don't make money on your podcast. What the hell you make money on?
He's still doing carpet cleaning back in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I couldn't do carpet cleaning if I was paid 3 times as much. I physically I couldn't do it anymore. I get too old. But here's the thing. Every content that you put out, every information that you plug, every book or podcast that you're on is a way for people to know, like, and trust you and feel safe with you. And maybe the book doesn't make any money. Maybe the podcast doesn't make any, but people are going to hire you to speak. You're going to make money. People are going to hire you to help them with marketing or whatever it is that you do. Now you're making money.
Yep.
So, a lot of people say, well, Rob, I don't want to invest in all of that because I just want to make money. That seems like a lot of stuff that you have to. Marketing, that's what it is.
And I'm going to wrap this up with one thought for you. If you went to college, I don't care if it's junior college or college, right? If you went to college, how much money did you spend on your education? And I ask this of people quite often because, they'll say, well, how much do you charge for your speaker training? And I'll go, you want the full speaker training where I teach you everything? I said, that's $10,000. And they're like, oh my God. I go, well, how much was your college? And they go, I think it was 15,000 a year. I went, okay. So then you graduated with what degree? And they're like me. They graduated with a liberal arts degree, right? And I go, and what job did you get directly from that degree when you graduated? And they're like, well, you couldn't, nothing. And I went, so you spent $18,000 a year, for 4 years. So basically $60,000. And what did you get for it? Oh, you got a certificate. Well, I'll give you a certificate when you spend 10,000 with me too. And I don't care what you do. I mean, that's the stupidity of what we say to each other all the time is, well, I can't afford that. Well, you could afford this.
Mhm.
I've had people say I can afford a trip to Disney, right, for $10,000 because it's fabulous. And I go, but what do you have when you're done? You've got
Mhm.
$10,000 poor. I said, what you want is the ability to make money after you've spent it. You want to be able to make it all back 10, 20, 30 times as much. And that's what
Right.
it's all about,
And,
right,
and
Rob?
and as somebody who loves Disney and goes there frequently, I've taken everything that I've spent at Disney and turned it into books. I've turned it into marketing. I've turned it into customer service. I've I've learned to discover how other people work and act and carry on. And I
Well,
use it
that's
in stories and I make
yeah.
books out of it and content. People go on vacation, they'll spend all this money and they come back and what'd you learn? Nothing.
What do you mean? I went to have a good time.
Yeah, no, you learn.
Well, you can tell Rob and I are two peas in the same pot, unfortunately, because we have such a good time. First of all, we're both sarcastic, and you can learn from both of us a tremendous amount. So, Rob, I appreciate you being on. you can see behind him, he's got so many books. You're going to have fun reading all these books. Get on Amazon and grab a couple. Get on his website and
Yeah,
grab a couple.
the fastest way to get my books is www.getrobsbooks.com, and it'll take you right to the Amazon page, and you can order and have fun.
GetRobsBooks.com. I like that. I might have to learn how to do that. Anyway, I sure appreciate you guys listening today. This has been Know, Like, and Trust. I'm Steve Sapato. You can reach me at steve@stevesapato.com. And if you have any questions, please reach out to both of us. We would love to help you succeed in your life. God bless. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you.
Yeah.